me welcome our next guest, Russell Edmond, to the show. Russell, my man, how are you doing today?
I'm doing well, thank you. How are you, sir?
Oh, Russell, I am so excited to have you on. I mean, they tell me you are the hotel guy. Can you attest to that? Or
Well, I can. I'm not gonna fake it at this point, but yeah, I got 25 years. Not saying that 25 years or all the years that I have makes me an expert, but I would have to say that I err on the side of expert and less on just being a novice. So yeah, 25 years experience. Yeah, I can say that.
now, when we talk about hospitality, I think a lot of people think about hotels, but did you cover the gamut when it comes to restaurants or, sort of that whole guest experience, or where was your niche in the spectrum there?
That's a great question. My experience, for the most part, is in hotels, but coming up, and I came up with Marriott years ago, and I came in the Courtyard division. So within that space or within the Courtyard division, there's a training. It was called the ID program, or Individual Development Program. So basically, I came in as a manager, but I trained in three different aspects. So housekeeping, front office, and restaurant. So that's where my restaurant experience comes from the Courtyard. And then later on, I kind of oversaw some things as an AGM, assistant general manager, at other hotels. And then you kind of have to be involved in what's going on, food costs and things like that. But as far as like a freestanding restaurant, no, never worked in a freestanding restaurant, but all my experience within food and beverage comes from the hotel space.
Love it, man. Love it. And, for everyone tuning in, turn your ears on, because this is going to be a heck of an episode. Russell has such a unique perspective in this hotel and hospitality industry. And, it's no secret anymore that COVID-19 is here. It's been here for over a year now. And I mean, Russell, it's really shaken up the landscape. So, before we sort of dive in, I got to ask the question, could you ever imagine in your tenure of working in this space that we would experience something like a COVID-19 pandemic that would just put the industry on halt? Or what was that experience like for you when you found out that, hotels were shutting their doors and we were just not going to be, in this social environment?
This is unheard of. It's unprecedented. There's nothing that compares to this. I don't care what you say. There's nothing compares to having, people getting furloughed or laid off, or, companies, smaller companies actually losing their hotels. They're having to close their hotels down. I mean, there has to be something of, great magnitude for anyone to have to shut their doors and close it off. So no one's ever seen anything like this. No one in our generation has seen this. And I pray that we never see it again. And we're not even out of it yet. So we're not even out of it. But when it first hit, because just give you a little background on me. I mean, I left being on property about 4 years ago to start my own business. So I'm a consultant in the space, pretty much social media and things like that, just for hotels to stay relevant. I mean, my job is to keep hotels relevant, especially during times like this. So so I left the property. But you still kept in touch with people that, that are still working in the space. And, they would tell me that, oh, we got laid off, or we laid out X amount of people today, and we're not sure if we're going to stay open. And I mean, it's just one of the saddest things I can ever talk about or discuss. But it wasn't just the hotels. You got to remember, you got hotels, and I'm speaking like hotels and destinations. So like say Long Beach, let's say Los Angeles. I'm in Los Angeles, right? So the CVB, or the Convention and Visitors Bureau, tourism board, so they're responsible for bringing business in. Well, they shut down as well, right? Because they're funded by the tax dollars that hotels generate. So if hotels aren't open, well, guess what? Unless they have, a fund where, they haven't been touching, or, but they have to go through that at that point, because if hotels are not, people aren't staying, they're not paying the tax. And if they're not paying the tax, the tourism board or bureaus are not getting funded. So they had to cut back drastically as well. So it wasn't just the hotels, it was the the CVBs, or they call them DMOs, which stands for Destination Marketing Organizations. So they're the tourism arm of the city, or of that destination. So yeah, so all those had to either cut back drastically, or they didn't close their doors. The CVBs didn't close their doors, but they did cut back drastically. And then you can probably see now that they're trying to do more with less. There's less amount of people there trying to do more of the work until this thing, until people go back to work. And that's starting to happen now. It's starting to loosen up now. But I can say this, that, it's going to be a while before, because people keep saying, people will say, well, this is the new normal. I say, well, no, this is the new reality. This is the reality that we're in. Okay. It's never going to go back to where it was. I don't care what you say. It's never going to go back to where it was. And different things are going to have to happen. Because when we talk about before we got on air, we talk about, I'm not saying that things are going to be a touchless society, but this is the point where we need to embrace technology, and hotels and hospitality industry are slow to do that. They've been slow to do that forever. Okay. Yep. So this is nothing new.
Yep.
But this is the time to embrace technology.
We're going to unpack that, right? Because I'm excited. This is sort of the state of the union as it is right now. And, later in the show, we're going to talk about what reentry looks like and where some of these innovative solutions are and how they're positioning self from a social side to really meet that consumer where they're at right now. But before we do that, I want to go back and lean, you said you came out of the properties about 4 years ago, and we saw a big disruptor come with Airbnb and VRBO to the hotel industry. And so from a marketing and consulting lens, what did how were you guys able to sort of navigate and put hotels at the forefront of, the consumer's choice when these new disruptors came on the market?
Well, speaking of, like Airbnb and VRBO, depending on the market that you're in, it may not have been a disruptor at all. So when it first came on the scene, I remember, it's funny you should ask this question, because I was a general manager at a hotel called the Sportsman's Lodge Hotel, which is in the Valley section of Los Angeles. I'm not sure if you're familiar with Los Angeles at all, but it's north.
I have to get a little more familiar here, Russell.
Okay, so it's north of say Los Angeles for the most part. It's on the other side of the hill, which is Hollywood. So Hollywood, and then over the hill, that's the Valley section or whatever. So anyway, I was a general manager at a hotel called Sportsman's Lodge, which is in Studio City, and I remember getting a random call from a neighbor, and she was complaining to me that the owner had moved out, and they're renting this house out, to people, and it's competing with me. That's what she was basically saying. She was complaining because they're making noise, and I guess she wanted to. Maybe she can only make so much noise, so she wanted to let me know, and maybe as a hotelier, I could call someone and basically have it shut down. And I basically was trying to say, well, ma'am, there's not much I can do. And that was before. I don't even think I remember the name was Airbnb. This was maybe even before that.
Yep.
But it was shared housing or whatever you want to call it. So that was my first introduction to it. But it was not a concern of mine, but it was a concern of hers, because she even made a point to say they're making a lot of noise, they're not paying taxes on when they rent it. That's what kind of got me. I'm like, what do you mean they're not paying taxes? So I did some research, and yeah, that's true. I mean, Airbnb, the owners don't have to pay taxes, and that's why they're popping up everywhere, and it's hard to police them. So, I mean, they're trying to come up with regulations and things like that. But to answer your question, it depends on the market that you're in. I mean, I live in an area, a pretty nice area here in LA, at least I think it is. There's a couple Airbnb homes around here. And yeah, they do get kind of out of control. So as a neighbor or a property owner, yeah, I can understand both sides of it. I can understand, okay, if I had that house, I probably would rent it out too.
Yep.
But it draws, people from the area, outside of the area, and sometimes it can lead to other issues. So, but I really don't have a problem with it, as long as they keep things under wraps. But as far as my hotels were concerned, there weren't a lot of issues with that. But now, hotel companies have got with their cities or their destinations, that basically started to complain. I think there's some things that happened in San Francisco where I'm not sure if they started having to pay taxes or not, but I know here in LA they have not.
Interesting.
So, and they're just, and they're not necessarily regulated, because like I said, there's been issues at this one that's right across from me, and I mean, it's still operating, so that's okay. It didn't hit me, so hopefully that didn't disturb anything. As they say, the show goes on.
Hey, I
So,
like the
so
background.
yeah,
It's
so
looking
it
good.
wasn't so it hasn't really been any issues. Any hotels I've worked in, we just, if you're doing what you're supposed to be doing, because there's going to be competition anyway. Okay, so you still have your other hotels that you have to compete with, and my thing is, are we doing enough, to combat that, to combat any other competition that may come into your marketplace? If you're doing everything you're supposed to be doing, if you're getting out like you're supposed to be, if you're doing things on social media, which a lot of hotels are not, they're not consistent with it. And I can say that because I know that that's what I do. And if you're doing all those things, you don't have anything to worry about. But when new supply comes in, new hotel supply, or companies move out, which is happening now. I mean, maybe the companies aren't moving out, but companies are going to be downsizing. Yep. Because people have, I don't know if you want to get into this now, but companies have figured out how to do, how to work from home, and eliminate the commuting, right? Because if you're in LA and I live where I live, and then I don't have to go to Century City every day, which could be a 30-minute drive to an office, and I'm still being productive here, why do I need an office to go into? So I've already seen, and I've talked to people where they've downsized their office. The same people still work. They haven't got rid of their workforce, but they're working from home. And it's, is the crazy thing is people tend to work more from home than they do at work because there's less distractions, right? Well, yep. There's no talking at the water cooler. There's no procrastination with this, no procrastination with that. Zoom, just like we're doing now. I mean, those are things that are not going away. So I hope I answered that question. It's kind of long, but I hope I answered that question.
I mean, it's so neat to get rich perspective from someone who's intimately in the space, right? Like, I mean, we can all speculate, but this is what you do day in and day out. And, I want to go a layer deeper, right? You talk about we're not going to completely touchless, but I hear rumors, I read articles about, us moving more to a kiosk first, right? So we'll just talk about check-in, right? Where now you're able to go ahead and through your social posts, you can get everything. We can pull all your information. You show up in the lobby, and we're talking about not having a person there anymore. Russell, can you speak to that of like, where are we going as we look at this reentry?
Well, some hotel companies, and I think Marriott is one of them, maybe Hilton is another one, where, you actually, once you make your reservation online, from your phone, you can select your room, and you can, that same app on your phone actually acts as a key to unlock your door. Has that been totally embraced? No, it has not, because there's always going to be some type of pushback, and I don't understand that. I don't know why, but because the people. I mean, I talk to people all the time, and they say, "Well, we're hospitality people, and this is why we got into this industry, and we have to talk." And I understand all that. I understand that. But what does the consumer want? Yep. That's the thing. It's not about what we want to give them. It's what they want to receive from us. So, and that's always been my thing, right? With anything, with selling and being the director of sales and marketing, and and being called on the carpet because we wanted to be a cool hotel like these other hotels. How are they getting actors and things like that to come hang out, and they're not coming to our property? Is because we're not being consistent with our product first and foremost, and we're not being consistent on social media, and we don't offer the same things that particular hotel offers. And we're downtown opposed to West Hollywood. I mean, so there's a whole lot of different factors that go into everything, and then we don't necessarily focus on those things, and we should. But if the customer is telling us that they want keyless entry or a mobile check-in and then we need to listen to that, because I mean
100%.
that's it. I mean, if you think about it, and I always use Marriott as an example, and not because that's where I started, because they're always innovators and everything, right? So just think about it like this: Marriott has 30 different brands. There's 30 different brands under the Marriott umbrella, and you know why that is? It's because they want to appeal to everybody: the cool people, the older people, the people that are staying long term, the people that are just here for a night. I mean, people that want a restaurant, a food and beverage experience, people that don't want that, right? So that's why they have 30 brands, because they want to appeal to everybody's needs or wants or whatever. So, I mean, that's just how it is. But getting back to the whole technology piece, I just hope that it goes forward and we don't have, as much pushback as I've been seeing. But like I said, it's up to the customer and what they want. If the customer's saying it, then we're going to have to do it.
Well, I tell you this, I mean, I think that, fill in the blank for the vertical, humans are just not accustomed to this much change, especially all at once, right? And so I think there's the voluntary, where it sounds like Marriott and Hilton and some of the larger chains were already thinking about this. And now there's this force mechanism of COVID that says, hey, whether you like it or not, we're going this way now, right? And so a subtle plug for the hands-free door opener. So if anybody in the hospitality space is listening, this is something over here at Remarkable that we're working on. It's not a keyless entry or anything, but it's, again, just trying to help as we go back into this post-COVID world. So we're going to take a pause on the hospitality space, though, Russell, because I have found out a couple of things about you that make you remarkable holistically. So I want to talk about the Special Needs Network. It looks like you've been volunteering there for over 16 years. Talk to me about that.
Oh my God.
How did you get involved in this network? And that, to me, is where we can take perspective outside of what we do day to day, and it helps bridge these gaps. So talk to us a little bit about that network.
Wow, you've definitely done your homework if you know about that, right?
Yes, sir.
So yes, I've been involved with Special Needs Network as a volunteer, worker, grunt worker for the most part, for I guess 16 years since its inception. So whenever that started, and I can't remember, but if you say 16 years, it's probably about right. It's close to that.
Yep.
So how I got involved in it is my wife is a board member. So a good friend of ours began this organization because she has an autistic son. Okay. And she wanted, and with having, kids with certain disabilities, there's a lot of stuff you have to go through to get services for them, in schools, to get IEPs and, evaluations and things like that. Because it, quite simply, if you don't know what you're doing, you can be discriminated against. It doesn't matter. It's not a racial discrimination thing. It's based on your disability. And some schools say, well, we don't have this, we don't have that. Well, no, by law, schools have to have it, have certain things for your child. With that being said, this lady, her name is Ariva Martin, and she's actually a well-known attorney here in Los Angeles, and she's on CNN a lot too. So she gives a legal background on CNN all the time. So it was her that came up, her and I think a colleague of hers that came up with it. And because she went through so much stuff, she wanted to make sure people within our community, and then when I'm talking about our community, I mean the Black and Brown community, they didn't have to go through it as well. Okay, so she actually wrote a book called I'll think about it in a minute, but she wrote a book, and it basically, highlights her journey to where she started, and uncovering these things, and the Everyday Advocate. That's what it's called, the Everyday Advocate. Okay. So basically, she had to advocate for her son to get the services and all the stuff she had to go through. I mean, she had a legal background, right? And just think, it was tremendously hard for her to get through it, and she had a legal background. So just think, if I don't have a legal background and I have to do the same things. So she wants to make it, kind of not easy, because it's not easy by any stretch of imagination. So she wanted to make it known that you're not alone. So if you're going through these things, you're not alone. And she came up with this whole Special Needs Network, which has been going on, like you said, 16 years here in Los Angeles. There's been other organizations throughout the state that have adopted the format and program. So my job is just to volunteer when they have special events to I remember when it first started, her first, she does this gala. So now it's gone from, fundraising is a big thing, right? So you always have to raise funds. So I remember them having their first gala or event was in her backyard, right? So of course I'm there, setting up tables, breaking down, serving people, whatever it took, because that's, I'd rather do that than some of the other stuff. So that was my volunteer. So, and then from that, it just blew up to now. I mean, that's maybe 50 people at that. Now they're doing several thousand people for a gala event, and they're doing it, nice hotels, 4 or 5-star hotels now. So it's gotten to that point where, you get a lot more people coming in, a lot more people that have the funds to donate for a worthy cause. So for me, that's my way of giving back. So that's what I do.
I think it's remarkable, man. That's why we do this show. It's neat to focus on what we do in the professional lens, how we pay our bills and make the impact in the business world. But I think too often we don't pay attention to what we do off the court or after hours. And that to me is where the real impact happens. And so I don't know about you, I volunteer across the board. When I was in college with special needs, and I learned more and take more from that than they probably do from me at any gala or any event. And so big time kudos to you there. That's the remarkable stuff that we like to highlight on top of what you're doing in the hospitality space. Awesome, man. So look, this is why we have this show, Russell, because it's not only about what you do in the work world, but you're changing the game, doing remarkable things across the board. As we start to turn the corner and wind down this episode, I'm really curious as to where you see the hospitality industry going as we start to round out 2021. If there's any nuggets for hospitality folks that are going to be tuning in here that you could share, or your perspective, that would be awesome.
Well, I mean, it's definitely now getting back to where, I'll use Southern California as an example. Disneyland is about to reopen, which is going to be huge, right? So depending on how things go with Disney, and I want to say that's going to be the end of this month. That's April 30th when Disney opens. Now it's going to be open to just a limited amount of people, of course. And I'm not sure if rides are going to be open at this point or not. So it's a kind of a wait and see. And I think Universal Studios is going to be open around that time as well. So it's going to be a wait and see to see if people are actually going to start going, and I know they will. And then that's going to open up, at least in that Disneyland area, for hotels. And I think it's going to be a domino, because Universal's going to open, and then Disneyland's going to open. So, it's going to be a domino for both of those areas. Right now, what hotels are doing, if they're not doing, they should be doing this. They should be promoting it's called a drive market, meaning within 2 hours from your property, right? So for LA, if I'm in Southern California, I have a hotel here, so I'm marketing to Santa Barbara or San Diego or Palm Springs area, or maybe even Vegas, because that's what they do, right? So anything within 2-hour drive of your destination, that's who you should be promoting to, and in your backyard as well. So backyard would be in your city, because we're talking about staycations and weekend getaways and things like that. So if you're not promoting for those things, you're definitely missing the boat, right? And that's where the whole social media comes in, because, I was a proponent for social media when I was on property, right? And back then, I'm talking about 4 years ago, still people didn't understand it. You know what I mean? I have a general manager that, he refused to embrace it and didn't understand it. And because he didn't understand it, he didn't want me to do it. I'm like, well, that doesn't even make any sense, because you don't understand it. I said, but believe me, I said, one day, because it's all about your brand. It's all about branding, because they want, this is how some of the mentality is that they want a quick ROI off your social media. So if I'm doing this posting, if I'm doing one posting, what am I getting for that one post? Well, you're not gonna get anything, because that's not how it works, right? It's all about your brand first, and then eventually it gets to that point, right? But it's brand, you're not selling, you're putting out your brand. I mean, you're talking about your brand, you're engaging your audience, you're bringing them in, right? Because people will book with people they know, or or whoever they're comfortable with, right?
Yep.
Even if it's an organization that they don't know the organization, well, they at least know someone's posting things. And if you can put things in there that are socially conscious, like say, as a team at this particular hotel, we we participate in a breast cancer walk, or for kids with autism. We're associated with that. People, especially the younger generation, they want to see stuff like that. They want to see things that they can relate to, or see what's going on, and that's how people are starting to. That's how the people are starting to buy things now, because things are different now, right? So people are going to buy differently. So if you're going into it thinking that people are buying the same way they did pre-COVID, you're sadly mistaken, and that's not going to happen. You're going to be hitting your head against the wall. So, but yeah, so that's what I think. I think that, yeah, we need to concentrate right now on, it's called the leisure market. So we concentrate more on the leisure market. Some people want, the corporate market will come back, but it's going to come back slowly, because it's based on people going back to work and companies allowing people to start do meetings and things like that. Because that's another big component that's missing, right? It's the meetings, because with meetings comes food and beverage and all that stuff, right?
Yep.
So that's the component that's missing now, but that's not going to come back. I'm gonna say another year or so.
Yep.
Consistently. Yeah.
I'm thinking a year to 18 months at the earliest. And I just don't think we'll see the volume, right, to what you alluded to earlier in the conversation, because we're now exactly right. We're working from home. We don't have to travel as much. We can get just as much productivity as these tools continue to get better. So, Russell, what an amazing conversation. You're a remarkable human. If anybody in the hospitality industry is listening to this and they want to get in touch with you to learn more about your story, your journey, and your services, where can they find you?
You can find me at russellofhotels.com. That is my email. I'll say that again. Russell, RUSSELL, at russellofhotels.com. Or my website is russellofhotels.com. And my information is there. My cell phone, as well as my email, is there as well.
Awesome. And we're going to be sure to post those links. I encourage everyone to reach out, get to know Russell. He's doing amazing things both in the hospitality world and the community of Los Angeles. Russell, I'm going to give you the last word, man. What do you want to send our listeners off with today?
Social media. Be consistent. No, just, we'll get through this COVID thing. We just got to be a little bit more patient, but it's going to happen. But, don't think it's going to be like it used to be, but that doesn't mean there's not going to be opportunities for people to get back to work. It's just that, we're going to have to sell differently. We're going to have to service clients differently. And quite frankly, we're going to have to listen to the client and see exactly what they want in order for us to move forward. So that's it.
There you have it, everybody.
For allowing me to be on the show.
From the man, the myth, the legend, Russell Edmond, thank you so much for coming on. We are highlighting remarkable people, telling remarkable stories, making remarkable impact, and the next guest has big shoes to fill. Russell, thank you again for coming on the show, and everybody be sure to tune in next time to The Remarkable Show.